Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Untold Story podcast. I'm Martha McCallum, and it's great to have you with us today. Our goal over the next several weeks is to speak to a number of the incoming administration figures who will be very instrumental in a huge shakeup that is expected to happen really across the government, between DOJ and the border, the economy. Those are the biggest issues. So really glad today to be joined by Tom Homan, who is the incoming border czar, but he has a long history in law enforcement, starting as a police officer in New York. He worked in the Immigration and Naturalization Agency back in 1984. So he's also considered someone who was instrumental in the separation policy that became controversial, and he can talk about why he felt that was so important at the time. But Tom, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, what I like to do on the Untold Story is kind of go a little bit deeper into your own personal history. I saw the other day that you were speaking about the children that you've encountered along the way and the incredible trauma that they have encountered in the very dangerous game of crossing our border illegally. So give us a little sense, maybe just going back to when you became a police officer and why this is such a passion to protect people and to enforce the law for you personally.
It's, I had great parents and I had a great family. I mean, my dad was a cop, my grandfather was a cop, and even in high school, I became a lifeguard. I always wanted to serve the people in my community. And I got seven brothers and sisters, and they're all in the service field. Most of them are nurses and firemen. So my parents raised us to serve our communities that helped raise us. So I've always knew I was going to be in law enforcement from the very start. So I was a police officer in New York, then I became a border patrol agent. So I wore that uniform down in the California border. Then I became a special agent. And from there, I've climbed the ladder over the last 3 decades. I actually became the first director of ICE who actually came up through the ranks. Not a political appointee, not a campaign favor. Mm-hmm. I came up through the ranks. So the 20,000 men and women that work for me, I didn't ask them to do anything. I didn't do myself because I was one of them. So that was my proudest achievement. Actually, being the director of ICE, I actually came up through the ranks. So I knew the job very well. Of course, I retired, came to Fox News. But President Trump and me, when he decided to run for re-election, I supported it. And when he asked me to come back and fix the problem I've been complaining about on Fox Network for 4 years, I said, absolutely, I'll come back.
Well, there's been a lot to watch and to complain about over the last several years. We've watched millions of people cross this border. And one of the things that we've covered a lot on my show is human trafficking and the real concerns about how dangerous it is to cross this border. And I've heard you tell stories about people who were piled into the back of trucks and even a young child that lost their life that you encountered along the way. Share that with us if you would, because I think it's important.
From the very first year I was in Border Patrol, I remember I was on patrol near Tecate, California, and I grew up in a small town in upstate New York. Grew up milking cows, right? I mean, that's what everybody did up there. But first year in the Border Patrol, I'm on patrol, and I see an alien walking down the dirt road, holding something over his shoulder. I later found out he's carrying a human leg that he found while walking through the trail into the United States. That's when I realized, okay, I'm no longer in West Carthage, New York. I'm on the border, and this is incredible what goes on every day. But throughout my career in the Border Patrol and ICE, I've held dying children. I've held dead children. And the thing that affected me the most was in, I think it's 2003, 2005, I forget. I was called to run an investigation in Victoria, Texas. They flew me down there with an Air Marine helicopter. I got on the scene. I was walked through the crime scene by the local sheriff and told, okay, this is your investigation, your problem. And as soon as I walk out the back of the tractor trailer, I see 19 dead human beings, some on the ground outside the doors and most of them in the back of the tractor trailer. And immediately I keyed on a little boy. I still remember he's wearing, everybody was stripped to their underwear because they're trying to find some relief from the heat in that steel box in the middle of summer. They baked to death. They basically baked to death at 180 degrees in back of that steel box. And I keyed on a little boy, a 5-year-old little boy. I remember wearing yellow Batman underwear. And I keyed on it because my son, who was 5 at the time, had the same underwear. So when I got in the back of the tractor trailer, we normally take crime scene pictures in quadrants, but I told the crime scene photographer to do a circular motion, leave the boy for last. And he questioned me on that. And the reason I did that, because I could not handle the little boy at the time. It really affected me. So he said the boy for last. And as I testified in court, before we took pictures and removed his body and took the measurements, I kneeled down beside him. I put my arms on him and I said a prayer for him. We found his father was cradled over because his father died soon afterwards. But I put my arms and said a prayer for him because I knew, based on all these years of doing smuggling and trafficking investigations, how he suffered a horrible death, a child. And no child should ever die, especially no one should ever die like that. So I said a prayer for him. So look, I was on the ground there for several months. We put 14 people in prison. I wish I could have put them in prison the rest of their lives. And after that incident, Martha, I'll be honest with you, I had to get help. I mean, I wasn't sleeping at night. Every time I fall asleep, I picture my son laying there. And why is my son so lucky to be born in the greatest nation on earth, and this young child wasn't, and he was making this journey? I also thought about his father, that his father put him in that position. And during the testimony of the other witnesses, that little boy begged his father not to let him die. He knew he was dying. He begged his father. He wanted to see his mommy again. Please don't let me die. So the whole story and the whole investigation just turned me inside out. So after that, I realized we can stop this. And there's such tragedy on that border. Put illegal immigration beside, people die on that border every day. And women get raped by the criminal cartels every day. So when President Trump had the border locked down at the greatest rate ever, unprecedented success, we saved a lot of lives. So I'm angry now. And the reason I came back, because for 4 years, I knew when Joe Biden opened the border up, it's going to cause more sexual assault to females. It's going to cause more children to die. It caused more migrants to die. Under Joe Biden, we got almost 4,000 migrants that have died crossing the border, which is an historic record. So secure border saves lives, and that's my main message. That's why I keep fighting against it. You mentioned earlier the family separation, what was zero tolerance? The whole reason behind zero tolerance was because women were being sexually assaulted, children were dying almost daily, and then we said, look, let's start prosecuting them for entering the country because it is a crime, and maybe if we prosecute them, they'll stop coming, and less people die, less women get sexually assaulted. And the numbers on the border actually did decrease significantly. However, when you lock a parent up, the child can't go with him or her. So that causes separation. So the intent wasn't to punish. The intent wasn't to be inhumane. The intent was if we start prosecuting, maybe the flow will decrease and less people will be hurt.
You know, I mean, one of the things that I find so compelling is that there's this comparison, right? You have people in this country, these horrific stories, a couple of them in Massachusetts, child predators who are abusing children. There was another one I just heard about in Colorado, a 14-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted allegedly by an illegal immigrant who was living in their house. So you've got the criminal element here in this country. Then you have the criminal cartel element that is abusing these people and hurting them and putting them in these extraordinarily dangerous situations, which we heard nothing about during the Biden administration. And, you know, I would encourage everybody to watch this movie, City of Dreams, which I just saw recently, because I think it's a great way for people to spend, you know, an hour and 15 minutes, whatever it is. This little boy, it's a story of this little boy's life. He's told that his father's told, oh, we're going to take your son to a soccer camp in California. And this very sketchy individual, you know, basically gathers up him and a bunch of other kids, gets them across the border, and they, you know, his little brochure for soccer camp in his wrapped up in his pocket, he is taken directly to a garment slave labor house in the middle of what looks like a fairly decent neighborhood in Los Angeles, and he's trapped. He's held prisoner there, and he works, you know, 18 hours a day. This little boy who's probably 8 or 9 years old. And I just think that it hasn't been talked about enough how much the cartels are winning and making off of these young lives. As borders are in the new administration, how will you attack that?
Well, we need to secure the border. We need to take their profits away. Now, the criminal cartels in Mexico, they have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. Yeah. And that's why President Trump's committed to designating them terrorist organizations. and taking them on in that fashion, which means we're going to take them on all over the world. The Jalisco cartel, they're in 45 countries around the globe now. They're like a Fortune 500 company. And their criminal cartels now are in every major city of the United States. Smuggling the narcotics across the border wasn't enough for them. They actually are in place now in our major cities and taking over the distribution and the transit of drugs within the United States. So President Trump's going to attack them. He's going to attack them, and it's going to take. It's going to take the United States to do it. Mexico don't have the capability. Frankly, I don't think Mexico wants to take it on. The cartels are heavily armed. They're armed with military-grade weapons. I've seen videos from intelligence groups where they've killed a lot of soldiers. The criminal cartels have killed judges. They've killed journalists. Yeah. You know, the country fears them. So it's going to take someone like the United States to come in with special operations, our intelligence, tracing the money to dismantle them. But the cartels pose the biggest threat to our national security because what they have done, they're making record amounts of money in narcotics. They make record amounts of money in alien smuggling, and now they're making record amounts of money in sex trafficking of women and children. So now the cartels south of the border, you don't hear about this. There's a war going on down south of the border where cartels are fighting each other for control of the plazas. The plazas are the area of operation that they control. No illegal alien enters the United States on his own. If they catch you entering the United States without paying off the cartel fees, the plaza fees, they'll kill you. So securing the border is going to be a big part of it. That's going to take away their income. And also we need President Trump needs to take action on China. China is providing the precursors, the ingredients to make the fentanyl and these other dangerous drugs. We need to hold China accountable, but we need to take the cartels and we need to play the away game first. Play it in their country and to take them out in their country. Then we can deal with what's here in the United States. But we need to lock that border down. Locking the border down will have a significant negative effect on the cartels. But here's the downside. You're going to see violence on the border. Cartels aren't going to be shut down easily. And I hope and pray every night these border patrol agents go home safe to their families because it's going to get dangerous quick.
So give us a practical sense of what shutting down the border looks like. What kind of action are we going to see right away?
I think President Trump proved in his first administration, his policies were the most effective in my career. And I started in 1984. I'm old. You look at the Remain in Mexico program, game changer. The Remain in Mexico program is probably the biggest successful program to move our numbers at a 45-year low because you can still claim asylum. If you're really escaping fear and persecution from your home government because of race, religion, political affiliation, wait in Mexico till your hearing, then you'll have your hearing. And if you lose, which 90% of them lose, and that's a real number, it's 87.8% of them will lose and get order removal because they simply don't qualify for asylum. They're coming here for a better life, and I get that. They're coming here for a job, and I get that, but that's not asylum. So 9 out of 10 will get order removal, but they're in Mexico, we don't have to find them. But after about 60 days of Remain in Mexico, the number of people coming to Mexico decreased by over 80% because they realized, well, I don't really qualify. I'm just going for a job. I know I'm going to lose my case, so I'm not going to give these cartels every penny that I own. I'm not going to give them my life savings and sell my home or my ranch and give it to the cartels only to sit in Mexico because if I can't be released into the United States, what am I doing? So they stopped coming. And when they stopped coming, Martha, the sexual assaults went down.
Yeah.
The deaths on the border went down of them coming across the border. When 90% less people, it was actually 87%, that ballpark, when 87% less people are coming, how many women were being sexually assaulted by the cartels? How many children were dying crossing the Rio Grande or Crudo Desert? So Remain in Mexico, game changer. 30 safe country agreements, put them back in place. Well, that basically says if you're leaving El Salvador and you're claiming fear and persecution from your home government and you get to Mexico, have you not escaped that fear and persecution from your home government? Because you're not there anymore. You should be claiming asylum in the first free country you came to and get to it. And that's Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras all agreed to that plan. And that was a game changer. Finally, ending catch and release. For those who do come across the border, if you don't release them, if you detain them long enough to see a judge, 90% will lose their case and they go home. So end catch and release. Releasing people in the United States where most of them are in the wind, you're not going to be able to find them because they don't have no digital footprint here. That's a bad thing. That's what the Biden administration has proven to the whole world. You cross the border illegally, which is a crime, We'll process you. We'll release you within a day. We'll give you a free airline ticket to the city of your choice. Yeah. We'll put you in a free hotel room. We'll give you 3 meals a day. We'll give you free medical attention. In about 90 days, we'll give you work authorization, which is the very reason you came here.
So and why wouldn't you come?
When you make those type of promises, the whole world comes.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
The Untold Story continues right after this.
I want to ask you about you just brought up this issue of holding people and not catching them and releasing them. And when you were talking about the plane, I could just picture Jose Ibarra's face in my mind. The killer of Laken Riley took a U.S. taxpayer-funded flight with this woman. Let's go to Georgia. The government will pay for it here. And then he got there, and what did he do? He murdered that young woman and just robbed her family of their entire future, of their daughter and sister and friend. So one of the things I want to ask you about is this offer from Don Buckingham has talked about it, the Texas Land Commissioner, that they have land that could build a center to hold people on. And you've said, yes, that's something that we want to take advantage of. Give us a sense of that land, what that is going to look like, and what you want to do with it.
Well, again, we got a lot of contractors that supply us with beds. During the Trump administration, we had almost 60,000 people in custody. This administration hasn't went over 32,000. So there are available beds to brick and mortar places we can house people. But no, this is going to require construction of soft-sided facilities, temporary facilities, because people need to understand when you arrest somebody for deportation, you just don't arrest them, put them on an airplane, send them home. You got to detain them for a few days or maybe as many as a few weeks, because you got to get wherever they're not, if they're a citizen of El Salvador, you got to get Salvador to accept them, agree to accept them. You got to give them send you a travel document that the alien has when he arrives in that country, and they got to agree to landing rights. So it takes from a few days to a few weeks to make these arrangements. So we got to detain him for a little while. So that's why during this big deportation operation, we got to have more beds. So, we don't need brick and mortar. We just need temporary facilities because they'll be turned over, the bodies turned over every 2 weeks. So there'll be a lot of soft-sided facilities we need to put up in. If they're offering over 1,000 acres of land, free land, that would cut the cost down for the taxpayer. We won't put brick and mortar buildings up because, again, it'd be cheaper for soft-sided facilities, temporary facilities that still have air conditioning. I mean, they're going to have all the amenities of a brick and mortar, except you don't have that hard concrete building. So we'll take advantage of it, and I'm sure we'd be putting soft-sided processing facilities for those who do escape into the United States and we arrest. We got a place to process them. Then the other ones would be holding facilities, staging facilities, if you will, moving people from all the country to the staging facility and making flight arrangements from there near an airstrip. So that is one option, but I certainly think we're going to need facilities throughout the country. We're going to need airstrips throughout the country, but that may be what we're planning on. That could be the hub, the central, right. the center for the operation.
This might not be the smartest question, but I always wonder this, and I know other people have asked me about it too. What do we care if other countries won't take these people back? Why don't we just deliver them and let that be their problem?
I'm with you, but you got permission to land in their airports. That could be a problem. Some of these countries are crazy. They'll block the air, the air path coming in, the runways with military vehicles. So
yeah. So it's literally dangerous for the pilots and just for getting landing rights. I wonder what you thought about this. There's obviously so much discussion about this mass deportation. I read a quote from you back in July of this year. If you were speaking to a conservative group in July, if Trump comes back, I'll be right on his heels. They ain't even seen yet. I will run the biggest deportation effort the country has ever seen. What does that look like, Tom?
Well, look, the reason we're running the biggest deportation operation in history of the country, that's why I said they haven't seen yet, because Washington Post did a story on me 5 years ago. Tom Homan deports people, is really good at it. Well, our numbers back there is about 300,000 removals a year. The reason they haven't seen anything yet, because this operation is going to be much bigger. And why is that? Because you got massive illegal immigration on the border, right? We got over close to 7 million illegal aliens have been released in this country. We got 2 million plus gotaways. So we're looking at 9 million that came in under this administration. So, and like I said earlier, 90% of them, close to 90%, will get an order removal. They have to be removed. So this operation is going to be much bigger than anything we've ever done. But here's what I'm trying to tell people. People say, well, really a mass operation? Isn't that inhumane? Isn't that racist? No. You can't let millions of people into this country, across the border illegally, which is a crime. They demand to see a judge. They demand the right to due process. Mm-hmm. They demand the right to make an asylum claim. Okay, you have that right, and we're going to give you that opportunity. We'll give you your day in court. But at the end of that process, when a federal judge says you got to go home, they have to go home. Because if we don't send them home, then what the hell are we doing? I mean, if the court orders don't mean anything, then what are we doing? Shut down the immigration court because it doesn't mean anything anymore. Take the border patrol off the border because there's no consequences. Right. So you can't demand due process and not obey the final order, because the only other option is to let them stay. If you let them stay, you're never going to stop the whole world from wanting to come to the greatest nation on earth.
We don't hear as much about building the wall lately. Why is that?
Well, we're going to continue building the wall. And look, I mean, I think that lots of attention on securing the border is going to be part of it. What people need to understand, this administration lied to them. I remember the day Jen Psaki stood at the White House podium and said, we stopped constructing the wall because it wasn't working, it was ineffective. That was a stone cold lie. If you go to cbp.gov, every place, which is Customs Border Protection official website, the federal government's own data shows every place that put a border barrier, illegal immigration decreased, yes. Illegal drug flow decreased. It also saved lives, which I talk about a lot. Women and children can't get over that wall, which means they're going to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? The men and women of the Border Patrol, whose first thing is going to be taking care of their medical needs, because a lot of them are in bad shape. The wall saved lives. So the wall works. And there will be some more wall built. And some of the wall needs to be repaired because they didn't repair some of the wall that was damaged. So walls work. And walls, again, saves lives. And I think that's part of the overall plan. So,
okay, it is part of the overall plan. With regard to the mass deportation and the pushback that we're seeing on a number of blue state governors and mayors of cities like Denver, for example, who said essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, this is Mayor Johnstone in Denver, Johnston, saying that not only will they have police on the Denver borders to prevent people from being taken out, but he said you're also going to see thousands of Denver citizens. It'll be like Tiananmen Square with roses and guns. What do you say to that, Mayor Tom?
A couple of things. First of all, President Trump and myself have been very, very clear from the day of the election that our priority out of the gate is national security threats and public safety threats. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of them. I mean, that's going to keep us busy for a while. We know that the removal of illegal aliens with a criminal conviction has decreased 74% under this administration. So we got a target-rich environment. We got Tren de Agua. We got MS-13. We got all these criminal networks we need to find and deport. And I find it hard to believe that any elected official, whether you're a mayor or governor, you don't want public safety threats out of your community? I mean, your number one responsibility is to protect your community. Why wouldn't you work with us to remove public safety threats out of your communities? Why wouldn't you work with us to remove national security threats out of your community? So that's ridiculous. And them attacking, us and men and women of ICE, like I told you, I grew up in a family of cops. Cops are respected. Now we're at a point with some of these sanctuary cities where the ones who want to enforce the law are the bad guys, and the ones who break the law are the victims. Mm. But look, they can stand in the way all they want. We're going to do this job. They're not going to stop us. Federal law always trumps state and local law. But I sent a warning out the other day. They need to study the law because it is a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer in the arrest of an individual. It is a felony to harbor and conceal, knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. So they can not cooperate. They can try to get in the way. But don't cross that line or there will be consequences.
But Tom, do you anticipate bad scene situations where literally you're pulling someone out of a building that you have an arrest warrant on or you believe has broken the law, and one of these city law enforcement people are on the other side of that holding you back?
They're going to do that on purpose, right? They're going to try to control the messaging that this is a racist, inhumane operation. They'll film the first child crying or the first mother crying. They'll film the first fight we have. Mm-hmm. They'll film, they'll get all this emotional stuff out on the media, try to favor the media to ICE bad, Trump bad, Homan bad. Oh, they're going to do it. We're counting on it. Now, I don't want it to happen, but I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. So that's why we need to be clear to the American people on who we're targeting. I think we should do a weekly press conference from the White House, explain to American people, here's exactly who we arrested.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Here's why we arrested them. And we need to control the messaging.
I think that's a great idea.
Focus on criminals.
I think that would make it a lot more clear to everyone. Last thing I want to just touch on with you here is this idea that these are not just, Tren de Aragua and these other gangs that we see crossing into the United States. How deep do you think it goes in terms of their ties to the governments, potentially, Maduro and Maduro's relationship with Iran? We see what China's doing to undercut us in, economically, with crime, with fentanyl, all of these things. How deep does it go in terms of global government connections with our enemies, do you think?
Oh, it's deep. I mean, look, Venezuela's emptied their prisons and sent them here. President Trump's been saying that for a long time. He empties the prison, says, you can't stay here. So I'll let you out of prisons, but you can't stay here. Well, we know, he knows where they're coming, right? You got 65,000 Chinese nationals, mostly military-age males, who've entered this country. 65,000 Chinese males don't leave China without the coordination and the approval of the Chinese government. That just don't happen in that country. You got thousands of Russians who've crossed our southern border. We got people from 181 different countries have crossed that border under the Biden administration. So yes, some of these are enemies. They're absolutely involved in getting these people. You got Chinese organized crime got well placed in Mexico to help with the smuggling across our border. So absolutely, I'm not saying every government, but our enemies, they're deeply involved in this, and that's what scares the hell out of me. And that's why I've always said the southwest border, and even Christopher Wray agrees with me. The open southwest border is the biggest national security vulnerability we've seen in this country, and there's more red flags right now we've ever seen. So it scares the hell out of me. It should scare the hell out of every American what this administration has done.
Tom, thank you very much. It's going to be very interesting to watch you in action as the border czar. It's going to be very different than the last border czar who never visited and certainly didn't have the experience that you have in every aspect of this work. So we're grateful to you for spending some time with us, and we look forward to those news conferences. I think that's a fantastic idea to keep people up on the progress week by week, and we hope that you'll visit us often to let us know what you're doing.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Martha.
Thank you so much. Tom Homan joining me today, former police officer, all the way up through the ranks in border security for the United States of America, the new border czar in the Trump administration, and we welcome him. We're glad to spend some time with him today. That is The Untold Story. I'm Martha McCallum, and we will see you next time. You've been listening to The Untold Story with Martha McCallum. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Make sure to rate and review. For more podcasts, go to foxnewspodcast.com. Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.